Mr. John Tafalis made a great gesture in helping to support the work of the Audrain Automobile Museum by donating this 1961 Jaguar Mark 9 sedan. You can make an equal effort in supporting the Audrain Museum simply by becoming a member. Membership has wonderful rewards. You not only become enrolled in NARM, the Reciprocal Museum Agreement, which grants you access to over 1,000 museums across the United States, and you also get a one-year subscription to Linkage Magazine, a $59 value, as well as great discounts for the Audrain Newport Concours Motor Week, and far more. Click here to find out all that you get as a member of the Audrain Automobile Museum. No matter where you live, you can use the Audrain can use you. Grace, pace, space. The unmistakable slogan of Jaguar cars to advertise their series of big saloons, as they refer to them, which started after the war with the Mark 7. I am a very proud and happy owner of a Jaguar Mark 7, and in fact you can see my car being driven on a video here on the Audrain Museum Network, an episode of Mansions and Motor Cars with my friend Jay Leno driving my car. I love these cars. I think they're absolutely amazing, and this car that I'm driving today, which is the last of the line of this particular sedan, is a 1961 Jaguar Mark 9. Now through the Mark 7, 7M, 8, and 9, the cars were developed in, you might even say, sort of two parallel or perhaps contradictory tracks. The Mark 7 was an amazingly capable sports sedan. And when you look at the basic shape of this car, a lot of people say, sports sedan? But especially in its 7M guise, it was very successfully raced in saloon car racing by the likes of Mike Hawthorne and Sterling Moss. And I have certainly enjoyed my car in very spirited driving on rallies and tours, and just on the road in general. And my car is a very different car. The Mark 7 is a very different car than the Mark 8 or certainly this Mark 9. One of the chief objectives of Jaguar with this sedan was to sell a lot of them in the export markets, especially the United States. And the Jaguar Mark 7 had a truly unmatchable combination of performance and comfort and style for the early 1950s. And taking that formula and tweaking it to better, as Jaguar saw it, suit the US market seemed a no-brainer. Much as the original Ford Thunderbird turned from its very romantic two-seater model after 1957 to the much more successful four-seater in 1958, the sports sedan that the Jaguar Mark 7 began life as being became this car, which is really the introduction to a very, very different car, the next big Jaguar sedan, the Mark 10. But let's get back to this car. This 1961 Mark 9, which, not coincidentally, was, was donated to the Audrain Automobile Museum by a great supporter, Mr. John Tafalis, who knew that by giving us this wonderful Jaguar, we could use it in helping to further our mission to preserve, celebrate, and share automotive history by getting it back out on the road and bringing it to events and doing videos like this one so that people can get to understand what this car is and what cars like this are all about. The Mark 9 This particular Mark 9 is a great example. Most of the Mark 7s, 8s, and 9s sold in the US came with automatic transmissions and bench seats, the way this car is equipped. My car is a rather different one. Came to the United States when new, but has bucket seats, 4-speed manual transmission, and was upgraded in period to 120M spec with the bigger twin SU carburetors and a hotter cam and basically the C-type head. This car is Jaguar's competition for a Cadillac of the era. The idea is to provide smooth, fast cruising. You are sitting on the sofa in a gentleman's club, surrounded by this wonderful veneered wood dashboard, a very, very luxuriously appointed interior, including picnic tables in the back, which you do not get in the bucket seat examples, and very much the banker's car, the Banker's Express. Now, you think, well, bankers shouldn't drive anything nearly as flash as a Jaguar, but this is one that you could, especially like this one is configured in black with this wonderful deep red interior. And I will tell you this, the driving characteristics of this car and my Mark 7 are very different, but very closely related. Space, we've already discussed. This car has plenty of that. Lots of leg room, headroom, hip room, shoulder room. And for pace, this car is equipped with a 3.8 liter version of the legendary XK engine, the very same 3.8 liter that would go into the Jaguar E-Type, and that had been featured in the XK 150. So it certainly has the pace. In this car, it puts out 220 horsepower, not shabby at all. And even combined with this automatic transmission, which is a 3-speed automatic, but it certainly has a very capacious torque converter, and I can't say that it actually dulls the performance, but it certainly smooths it out quite a bit compared to the manual shift Mark 7. And it's also quite interesting to note that the larger engine, the automatic transmission, this car weighs 300 pounds more than the Mark 7, than my Mark 7, and mine puts out 210 horsepower, so the performance differential, as you can imagine, is fairly substantial and immediately felt. But this car has two great advances over the earlier car. Everyone knows that Jaguar won at Le Mans over its competition, specifically Ferrari, because they did pioneering work in their race cars with disc brakes. And the Mark 9 was the first Jaguar production car to be fitted with 4-wheel disc brakes. So this car can stop. Also, it's a heck of a lot easier to handle than my Mark 7 because it's got power steering as well. So thinking of their target, the American market, this car was brilliantly conceived. The fact that 4-wheel disc brakes was definitely something quite exotic when thinking about a car of the early 1960s in the US. Power steering was absolutely mandatory, as was the automatic transmission. So in this, Jaguar would have the car just for the US market. And indeed, they made 10,000 of these cars, so it was a great success for Jaguar, and led it on its way to conquering a big part of the luxury sedan market in the US. The power steering gives it grace. The 3.8 liter engine gives it pace. And once you get used to the response of the automatic, especially the almost immediate upshift, which seems to dull the edge of the performance, but again, changes the character of the car. This is the car that you imagine and see Kim Novak pulling away from the Mark Hopkins Hotel in San Francisco in Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo. This is definitely the kind of car that a glamorous woman like that, or her gentleman companion, would drive. And it's wonderful to be able to have the comparison of these two cars, in which I think that it's not fair to say one is better than the other. They are very different. And to have the opportunity to sample both is a great luxury. In thinking about the evolution of Jaguars, this Mark 9 really sits at a transition point. Much as the XK150 fixed head coupe is very different from the E-Type that followed it immediately, but is very much the precursor to the later XJS as a GT cruiser. This Mark 9 is the introduction to the Mark 10, which would later lead to the wonderful XJ sedans of the 1960s through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and into 2000s. And cars that really defined a very special way that only Jaguar could do of combining comfort and handling and power. And as such, it's a really neat thing to experience. It is something that people cannot imagine if you just look at the outside of this car. This is a car that must be driven to be understood. And I'm glad that I have the opportunity to do that today. And once again, thank you, Mr. Tafalis, for your generous donation of this great car to the Audrain Automobile Museum.